Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Wednesday, October 21st. This is your daily Buckeye Fix. I'm Tom Orr. Ohio State and Nebraska will kick off the 2020 season 3 days from now. The game against Michigan, 52 days away. The Buckeyes have already switched from camp mode into game prep inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. But I think a lot of people may not know exactly what that means they're doing this week. So my guest is someone who definitely knows what is all about game prep at Ohio State, former Buckeye All-American and captain Kirk Barton. He also spent a few years as a graduate assistant coach at Ohio State, so he can kind of cover both sides of the ball there. Kirk, how are things different inside the building when you're prepping for a game on Saturday as compared to like a typical midweek practice during summer camp?
Well, it's today's Bloody Tuesday. So Bloody Tuesday is usually a pretty rough day in terms of the physicality of practice, especially early in the season. They do live inside run is a drill they call, where it's like the front seven of the offense versus the front seven of the defense. And they do a drill called pods, which is like a 2-on-2 blocking drill where it's like one D lineman and a linebacker versus a guard and a tackle, and then a center and a guard. And it's kind of like to work combination blocks, get good fits, and you get the physicality, but you get less risk of injury because there aren't guys that can fall and topple people's knees and fall into each other's knees. Urban loved that drill. That was a huge drill. Really, like this week, it's since I'm sure they've been game planning for Nebraska ever since they announced the schedule that they were playing. But this is a week where Urban would call it a +1. Like if we come off a bye week, that Monday practice is a +1 that you normally don't get. So they probably had a decent practice, probably not over the top yesterday. Tuesday's like the most miserable day of the week just because it's the most physical practice, full pads, get after it. Wednesday, they back it down a little bit. Wednesday, it's a lot of red zone work, a lot of third down work. You still go against the defense. Urban actually moved to doing ones versus twos and twos versus ones. With Tressel, it was always ones, twos, twos. But, you have like the second team defense run the cards, which is like the looks of, the defense that Nebraska runs. So it's interesting. And then Thursday, you're just down to shells, just like little pillow pads. And it's this perfect Thursday is what he called it. No drops, no balls hit the ground, no fumbles. And that's really just a practice where you want to go fast. You want to make sure that your assignments are good, but everything's real crisp and tight. And then Fridays, best Fridays in football. The best Fridays in football are a day where you show up. They have what Mickey Marotti calls woosah, which is like it's like a not a spa day, but they have massages, they have tons of good food. You get your treatments, you do meetings, then at the end of meetings you go out and do best Fridays in football, which is like you're out on the field and every position group plays like a goofy game. We used to play dodgeball, like as no line. This wasn't me, this was an Urban thing. Some guys play like basketball with little tiny medicine balls or whatever. Like it's, there's all kinds of goofy games. They do throwing competitions. You got to throw the football into the trash can, and they come up with all kinds of stuff. Then after that, after they do that relaxation period, then they do a real tight walkthrough that's real serious. And Urban's real big on like relax, then get serious. Like relax, get serious. Like flip the switch, and we do like a real serious walkthrough. So we then we go to the team meal, check into the Blackwell, and then game day, man. A noon game, those things come quick. I mean, you're getting the kids up at 6:45 a.m., a lot of screaming and yelling by the strength coaches, and the coaches waking everybody up. And you come down the stairs. They have this thing called Victory Water, which is just water, but it was like something Mickey like coined, where it's like, you drink this water. Oh, it's Victory Water, and drink it. Everybody, it's like a superstition thing. Team meal, walk through. And I mean, with the noon games, it's great because you can't lay around in your hotel all day. It's like time to roll. And people always hate me because I say I love noon games, but for me, I like being able to get up and get rolling and be done by 3:30, as opposed to just laying in a hotel room for an extra 3 hours. Like I want to get going. Like I want to get it done, get it over with. Not over with, but it's nice to get done at a decent hour so you can go out to eat with your family, which these kids can't do right now because of COVID. But it's a fun time. Like I'm excited for the kids, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do on Saturday.
Yeah, Ryan Day has talked about the fact that he likes noon games because he can get through all his responsibilities And then last year he could go home and watch football with his family and just, sit at home and sit on his lazy boy and watch football with his kids. And that was his favorite thing to do. That will probably not happen this year because he's trying to keep distant and not risk being around elementary school age kids. So that will probably not be quite as easy to do this year, but he'll, I'm sure, figure something out. Speaking of watching other teams play football, when do players start watching film for an upcoming opponent? Like, when did they start watching Nebraska film as a group? I mean, you always hear about guys who are just watching film year round, but when did the sort of concentrated paying attention to Nebraska start happening for the group? And let's be honest, how many guys have started peeking ahead a little bit towards Penn State?
Honestly, I don't think anybody has peeked ahead to Penn State. And it's not, it has nothing to do with the opponent, but it's just like, if you're in college and you're studying for a test on like the first 3 chapters of, calculus or whatever, like, are you really going to look ahead to like chapters 4, 5, and 6 and confuse yourself? Because it's hard. Because like when you're watching a team and what they do on defense, like there's really no reason to skip ahead because you don't want to, confuse yourself because you don't use all your energy on your current opponent because that's the only one that matters at this moment. And the guys, I'm sure they started, as soon as they announced Nebraska, I'm sure that they sent like every broken down game to Huddle because that's like something that's really neat now is that you have Huddle and it's an app that the coaches can push film to. It probably wasn't immediate because it's just been so strange, but I'm thinking, it might have taken like a day for the grad assistants to break everything down. Because you usually pick, like for Nebraska, we'll watch maybe Michigan, maybe Northwestern. Like, our offense is a power spread offense, so you want to look at like teams that are power spread. So like Northwestern would be a good one. Indiana, a lot of teams do the power spread, so it's a lot easier than it used to be, but. You don't want to watch a team like, if they like play Air Force and they're running the triple option or they play, I don't know if there's a single pro style offense left in college football, but like you want like a common type of offense so that you get like actual good looks at what you could get on defense. But the GAs usually have to break everything down. So that was like one of my jobs. The GAs usually work ahead. Like the GAs, I'm sure have Penn State completely broken down. So that, come Saturday night after the game, the kids, if they want, can start looking ahead to Penn State. Like if I'm a kid like Justin Fields, I get home from the game and I'm dialing up the Penn State film and watching, what they did, last year and what they did in game 1. But it's interesting. These guys have had a couple of weeks to study. And, the thing about an offseason is you never know what you're going to get because they could switch a lot of stuff up leading up into the first game, especially. But, I'm sure our guys will be ready and they'll have to be ready to adjust. Like that's kind of the beauty of playing game 1 is you really don't know what you're going to get. You think you know what you're going to get, but they have got all summer to, dial up something for Ohio State. A couple weeks to implement it since they announced the game. So it's going to be interesting to see what we get on Saturday.
But you always hear players talk about installing a new game plan. Like what does that look like? I mean, I assume there's, meetings and then, on-field stuff, and how much can you put in for a specific team in 1 week?
Honestly, it depends on your personnel, which I know that sounds silly, but if you suffer knocking on every wood in the world, like if Justin Fields gets hurt, you might have to change your game plan. Or if Trey Sermon gets hurt, or you might not be able to run the ball as much. I mean, it depends on how healthy your personnel is. It depends on your opponent's weaknesses that you would want to attack. Like when we played Michigan in 2006, like we were, an I formation running team. And then against Michigan, the way that they did their blitzing where they try to disguise everything and they're real successful with it. We decided to go 5 wide against Michigan, like almost the whole game. And because when you do that, they can't disguise anything. They have to show it because if they disguise it, they'll never get home and actually get a sack. So we changed our entire offense just for that game and it worked out great. So, it depends on what you see. If you can find a guy to pick on, a corner or a defensive end or a D tackle, I mean, that always helps because then you can really go after a guy, especially now the way, our guys can throw it and catch it. Like if there's a bad corner out there, man, it's going to, like when Haskins was playing Michigan and they kept throwing at the one poor corner, like, it's a bad day for that guy, but it's, you can put a lot in, but it's a lot of our base plays. I mean, you can't get too exotic like week one, because you really don't know what kind of defense you're going to get. Like you could, like Nebraska could have been like 60% blitz last year, and this year they might be 25% blitz, or vice versa. So it's a thing where, you got to stick to your core fundamentals of what you do well and believe in it, and then adjust as the game goes on.
Yeah, it seems like there's probably going to be something of a feeling out period on Saturday as they sort of look at, well, okay, what's Nebraska doing? Okay, adjust to that. And then what's Ohio State doing? Nebraska, adjust to that. One thing that will definitely help is, sounds like they're going to have a pretty good offensive line. I think that's something we've all sort of thought throughout the year. We got to talk to Coach Stud on Tuesday, and he said, this year's line could be better than last year's line. Last year's line was pretty darn good. They had some issues in pass pro, but overall that was a pretty good offensive line. He thinks this year's line could be better than that. Is that sort of how you see this potentially shaking out?
Well, I mean, they should be better. I mean, they've got 3 starters back. They've all got a lot of experience. They all were great players last year. Between Thayer, between Wyatt, our center's back, which is huge. Adding Harry Miller in there, Nick Frere, Harris. I mean, when you've got all those parts back, like guys, that are playing for money, like Wyatt is, like those guys they're out there to destroy people and dominate. So their technique is going to be locked in. They've probably been on better diets. They've probably been, more tuned into taking care of their bodies, because, this is their money. This is why it's money year. I mean, he made a lot of money, and that's how Thayer is. Like Thayer's going to have a big year. He's kind of had the injury bug the last couple of years, and, he has some bad tape that he put out last year. He's a very solid player, but, if he has a great year, then he can really ascend in the draft rank. So I expect them to be much better than they were last year. And in addition to that, I love J.K. Dobbins as a runner. I don't like him as a pass blocker, just because of his stature. It's hard for smaller backs to pass protect against blitzing linebackers. So I think that, Trey Sermon and Master Teague will both be better in that regard. And that helps. Like, I mean, people, they always think that pass protection, it's the O-line getting beat, but like sometimes the backs get beat, and JK was not a good pass protector. And a lot of it, he gave great effort, but he's just not a big, sturdy dude. He's not Ezekiel. He's not, a bigger tailback. So he can get bounced around back there, and we end up paying the price, like as an offensive unit. And I think that'll be an upgrade this year.
You mentioned Thayer Munford and not having a spectacular year last year. That was something Stud actually talked about on Tuesday. He said, he had those back issues from basically the Rose Bowl in 2018, more or less through kind of the late summer last year, and then was more or less healthy for the most part last fall. But he missed basically 8-9 months of strength and conditioning. So he couldn't do the heavy lifting they do with Mick during the winter. He couldn't do a lot of that stuff in the summer. So he was just kind of way behind with that last year. This year, I mean, obviously everyone's kind of not on exactly the normal schedule, but he's been on much more of a regular schedule this year. So Stud seemed to think that Thayer Munford would probably be, way ahead of where he was this time last year. So that seemed like good news. The other thing that was kind of intriguing to me from Stud was he went through, he was asked, who are the kind of younger guys who you feel like you kind of trust now, that you feel like are getting close to being game ready. And he named 5 guys. So he's got a guy for all 5 spots kind of on the backup, second team offensive line. So I'll run through them real quickly. The tackles, Dwan Jones, Paris Johnson, guards, Matt Jones, and Enoch Vamahi, and then Luke Weipler at center. I mean, this is obviously going to be a year when more teams are going to need backups for, injuries because of shortened camps and all that kind of stuff, but also just contact tracing stuff. I mean, like all of that stuff, like you got all sorts of places where things can kind of go pear-shaped for you this year. How big is it going to be to have 5 backup offensive linemen that they really feel pretty darn good about this year?
Well, I think it's huge. I don't know if that's a true statement or not, because, you never know until you put those guys out there. I mean, and you might feel better about some than others, but, it's like if the right guard goes down, is the right guard on the depth chart going to go in, or are they going to shift guys around? Like if our center goes down, are they going to move Harry Miller over and put, someone else at guard? Are they going to put DeJuan at guard? Or, because he's been playing some guard in camp. But I mean, I've never been in an O-line room where I felt like we had more than 7 or 8 guys that I could really feel good about. Like in 12, we had 6. I mean, if Reed Fragel, if any O-lineman got hurt, Taylor Decker was going in at right tackle, and there was going to be musical chairs moving it around to make sure that, like we could put Jack at center and put Taylor at left tackle. Like, I mean, it was, I don't know if we've ever really truly had 10, but if we do, God bless them. But I mean, in all my time playing at Ohio State and coaching at Ohio State, like I always felt like we might have one or two guys that I'd feel good about going into the game. But that's part of the challenge is you got to build depth. And honestly, if I'm a backup, I'm probably more excited than ever because of the COVID thing. I mean, you never know when you could be really in the game. Like, I mean, they could say, hey, Nick Frere tested positive. Paris, you're starting today. Like, so I mean, you gotta stay ready this year more than ever in the history of college football, which is fun. I mean, I like it as a coach because it's easier to keep guys motivated when they, anything can happen. Like there might be some crazy outbreak that knocks out 3 starters on the O-line, which I mean, knock on wood, I mean, that'd be awful, but the guys got to stay ready, man. There ain't no, you can't be the ERWs, as Bill Belichick called them, which is one of my favorite phrases. ERW is eat, ride, warm up. They're like a lot of the backup guys, like they eat the team meal, they ride the bus, and then they warm up, and then they just chill. Like you can't be that anymore. You got to be locked into the game.
Yeah, the motivation level for pretty much everyone on the team, everyone is closer to playing than they probably would be in a normal year, no matter where they are on the depth chart. So yeah, that should help the motivation in terms of prep and in terms of being engaged during the game and paying attention, I would think. As I mentioned, we get to talk to both Ryan Day and Greg Stabora on Tuesday. Later today, we're expecting to interview linebacker Tuff Borland, left tackle Thayer Munford, wide receiver Chris Olave, cornerback Marcus Williamson. We will have coverage of all of that at Buckeye Scoop today. And Kirk, you're going to be on TV this weekend. Let people know where they can find you on Saturday before and after the game. Yeah,
the Scoop family is expanding to network television. So I'm going to be on ABC6's Football Fever with Clay Hall. I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm going to be repping Buckeye Scoop to the fullest. I'm going to kind of be like the insider, like a kind of a Jake Glazer kind of role, but you can see me all suited and booted. You guys used to see me in a black hoodie, but I'm actually going to have a suit on. So we're going to take a picture, but I'll be on every single Saturday leading into the Ohio State game. So I'm super excited about it. I'm excited to expand the reach of the Scoop, and I hope you guys tune in.
That'll be awesome. Looking forward to that. That is always a great show. Clay Hall and his crew do a fantastic job with that. So yeah, you can find that on ABC6 in Columbus this weekend. And you can find all of our great podcasts from Buckeye Scoop on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can subscribe right there. Leave us a 5-star rating and review while you're at it. And speaking of subscribing, hey, this would be a pretty good time to subscribe to BuckeyeScoop.com. This is game week. Game week is here. Kirk is racing the roof. Game week is here. Nebraska in 3 days. Penn State in 10 days. This is as real as it's going to get. This is not a drill. Buckeye football is happening right now. So if you want to get all of the great insight from our team of insiders, Nevada Buck just had another update on sort of an insider report from practice that he dropped on Tuesday. More great stuff from him. You want to be the smartest person in your friend group who knows more about this year's Ohio State team than anyone else. Join BuckeyeScoop.com. We have an incredible team of insiders that provide you content, analysis, and insight that you just can't find anywhere else. You can sign up at BuckeyeScoop.com. Thank you guys all for joining us today. Have a great day, and we will talk to you tomorrow.